Meet Me in Your Dreams, a short story series. Episode 1, Belvedere. There was something sinister in the air as she crept silent over the staircase. The voice in her dreams had told her to go to the garden, so here she was, moving through the darkness as if she simply had to go there. But maybe a flashlight was also a good idea. She hesitated. Bring nothing with you. Not that, not anything. Leave your shoes at the door. Trust me. Hurry. Come quickly. The voice rang through her mind so fast she wasn't sure if her imagination was playing tricks on her by passing it through and leaving the inkling just out of reach. She put on her shoes anyway, just in case. It was cold out after all, and if she was going to solve the mystery building beyond her dreams, she would need something solid to stand on in the muddy early summer dirt. She pulled the lock and turned the knob silently, listening to the distant sound of her parents both snoring. It's safe. You could bring an elephant through here without coming near the fear of waking them. She rolled her eyes at the small truth from the other side of the door as she closed it more loudly, just to prove a point. As soon as the lock clicked, she froze in her tracks, listening without looking back. She waited for a light to come on, and when none did, she smiled slyly, moving more quickly down the back steps toward the garden's silhouetted wire fence. The towering trees surrounding the property cast daunting shadows that might have shaken her knees if she were any other human being. But her parents had often told her she lacked common sense. She didn't know when it was right to fear things, which had been happening since she was a baby and had apparently caused them quite a bit of heartache. The path led her to a small gate. She unlaced the homemade lock, placing the thin rope gently over the fence in a drape. She lay it so softly, as if trying not to hurt the inanimate coils. The act nearly changed the heart of her beholder. If he hadn't already firmly decided that she lost the chance for a meeting for not following basic instructions, he may have reconsidered his choice. But she had to learn. This kind of meeting was earned, not given. After all, it's the intimate details that define the hero. She trotted under the pocket of trees scattered along the edge of their immediate property. The shadowed figure beamed at the little creature's bravery as she let curiosity lead her even deeper into the night and away from the safety of her nest. He darted in closer, hopping into a tree in order to better see his query. She belongs to me, he thought vehemently, daring any other creature of the night to tempt his might by approaching her. He settled into his new vantage point, curious to see how long she would linger without his coming to meet her. A smile grew as he wandered through the options of how she might stumble onto the realization that she'd broken the rules by putting on shoes when told specifically not to. Even in passing, the details were important. And how long might it take her to come to that conclusion? He pondered the questions, scanning the darkness with one eye while the other remained glued to his little protégé, his chosen one. She peered this way and that, trying to pierce the darkness with her eyes. Shadows danced beneath the trees, but nothing else presented itself readily. She crouched closer to the ground, picking up a stick to poke it around before sitting herself down to wait. She waited and waited, never once losing conviction over what her dream had instructed her to do. According to her favorite books, if she sat through the test long enough, such a vivid dream was bound to come true, wasn't it? Slowly her focus faded. She fell ever so, her shoulders dipping lower and lower, they drooped, until she was curled up on the ground like a baby squirrel in silent rest. The figure hovering in the canopy chuckled as a tiny snore struck out against the icy fingers, threatening to sink in around her. Now that it was his duty to protect her, he couldn't stand to let the thick chill infect her at the hands of a lesson he'd hoped she'd learn softly. He drifted down to the grassy path and into the beginnings of the dewy blanket, starting their collection over each resolute blade. He melted into a bed of thick white wool, wrapping himself round her body completely as she slept easily. The entity drizzled comforting dreams over her countenance as he lifted her limp figure from the garden floor to return her through the open bedroom window she'd crept away from, unnoticed. She'd only remember this as a dream come morning. He smiled wryly. If only she would have listened more fully. He imagined the possibilities had she trusted the notion completely. She'd been so close this time. He drifted out of sight with her as they came into the shadow of the porch light, materializing again with the child by the side of her bed. She'll get there soon. His smile returned. The shocking appearance of her secret friend would have sent any mere mortal into a spiral of disbelief. But she slept peacefully in his arms. He replaced her safe and sound to the bed, resting a comforting hand on her forehead. It began to glow green and red as he released thoughts full of healing and love to swirl through her dreams soothingly. He'd grown attached to this one quickly. He felt for the road ahead of her, his fist clenched, willing her to trust him further. Her intuition was almost there. If only she could override those pesky rules she'd been told and approach her inklings more boldly. He dematerialized through the growing light, determined that someday soon, she'd make her way through the loophole he'd found so he could teach her the lessons she needed to know in order to better understand the lonely path she'd landed on. All in good time. Until next time, my little one.